Minister of Mines and Mining Development, Honorable Walter Chidakwa, Secretary for Mines and Mining Development, Professor Gujganga, all international delegates involved in the diamond mining industry here present, and I think I'll just end up by saying all protocol observed, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to make a presentation at this second World Zimbabwe Diamond Conference. The Zimbabwe Mining Development Corporation board we have a new board that is set up in April. So we've just been in place for close to 9 months, or 7 months to be precise. The way I would like to tackle this, my presentation, is really look at the theme, improving the state of Zimbabwe's diamonds industry. And perhaps I should start by giving a brief background of why the Zimbabwe Mining Development Corporation exists. Now, at the time of Zimbabwe's independence in 1980, the situation that pertained in the mining industry in this country was that there was virtually no exploration for minerals going on. All the last exploration activities that ever happened in this country had vanished in 1965. So the mines that were existing in this country at the time were really surviving on the resources and reserves that had been discovered before that time. At the first international conference that was held here, codenamed ZimCode, which brought in a whole lot of international investors into this country for the first time, it was felt that since there was no investment anyway in the country, there were questions that arose that the government of Zimbabwe should try and demonstrate its confidence in its own country by putting some money into exploration in order to try and simulate investor confidence to do the same. As a result, the Zimbabwe Mining Development Corporation was established by an act of parliament in 1984. And the first thing that ever happened was that this was just a corporation existing in the act, on paper, but had no assets. And then simultaneously, as it had just been formed, there was a company called Messina Transvaal Development, which owned some copper mines and gold mines in this country, which decided to disinvest around 1986. And they offered their mining assets and some real estate assets to government because they wanted to leave. And subsequently, what happened then is that government purchased those assets, and suddenly the Zimbabwe Mining Development Corporation had mining assets. So the corporation was thrust into this area at that time. And it then required that a new company had to recruit new people who were going to run that corporation. So it inherited 3 copper mines and 3 gold mines and some real estate, which is here in Harare. The next thing that I would like to make reference to is the issue of diamonds in Zimbabwe. I think when one talks about diamonds in Zimbabwe right now, everybody thinks that Murangari is the place. But as early as about 1984, 85, there was a big, massive program of aeromagnetic survey which was done through aid from the Canadian International Development Agency. It was a cooperation program that was run jointly with the Geological Survey Department of Zimbabwe. And through that, a major part, or every part of this country was flown for aeromagnetics. And when finally the results were published, it spared a lot of interest from companies that were interested to do mineral exploration. And this started happening around 1988 onwards. And what we witnessed between 1988 and 1996 was a lot of interest. There was a lot of EPOs which were exclusive prospecting orders which were issued by the Ministry of Mines for exploration of all minerals that can be thought of. But one significant fact was that the exploration licenses for diamonds, there were a lot of them which were applied for and issued to De Beers through their exploration company called Kimberlite Searches. I think in yesterday's presentation by the minister and also in the president's speech, there was mention of Kimberlite Searches when he made reference to Mr. Oppenheimer's visit. De Beers was the dominant company that took a lot of interest in looking for, exploring for diamonds in this country, throughout the country. These EPOs were issued from throughout the country, not just particularly in the eastern part of the country. And the Murangari area was just one other EPO that was issued towards in the mid-1990s. So what I'm really trying to emphasize here is that Murangari is just one chance that happened, but the interest for diamonds has been there. Sadly, apart from Kimberlite Searches, there were only 2 or 3 other companies that made applications for exploration for diamonds in the Ministry of Mines. And one of them was mentioned in the President's speech, a Canadian company called Trillion Resources. And another one was called Reunion Mining. But when all this was happening, De Beers used to have a license over River Ranch down in the close to Bight Bridge, where they'd done some work before and discovered diamonds, but for reasons of their own, they kept that in the back burner. And when the Ministry of Mines approached De Beers, and there's a clause in the Mines and Minerals Act which requires that the government may ask a company to go ahead and develop a deposit if it's in the national interest. Through that clause, the De Beers was approached, and they gave their reasons for not prioritizing River Ranch. Those reasons were not satisfactory, and subsequently they lost that license. And then River Ranch was auctioned, and a joint venture company between some Australians and Canadians was granted a license and permit to explore and develop the River Ranch mine. The exploration thrust by other companies, particularly Trillion, also led to a discovery of kimberlitic diamonds in a place called Ngulube. Well, that kimberlite is codenamed Ngulube diamond, Ngulube kimberlite. It's in the southwest part of the country. So the diamond story, then what then happened was that when De Beers moved on to, during their exploration in Manicaland, in that area which is now Murangari, obviously I think they must have discovered the alluvial diamonds that existed there. But for some reason, I don't think they ever made talk about it. Perhaps they could have mentioned it in their reports in the Geological Survey Department as it was required by law. However, the other complications or whatever happened, I'm not going to go into those details. Another company called ACR went into the area, and then all hell broke loose. And suddenly there was a big diamond rush in the Murangari area, which then later led the government to close off that area and subsequently granted a reservation or a reserved area to the ZMDC so that the ZMDC could then find ways of either joint venturing or on its own to start looking at developing and mining those diamonds, particularly the alluvials that had been discovered. So that's how the ZMDC got involved in Murangari. And of course, as you may be aware, there are 6 operations right now in Murangari in companies that are partly joint ventured with the ZMDC. All I think have joint ventured with the ZMDC, in fact. And they are the ones now that are producing the diamonds. But then the diamonds that are being mined in Murangari are all alluvial diamonds over the vast expanse of this valley. And of late, what we hear is that the alluvials, which is natural, are bound to get finished. And there are some who are now clamoring that they need new ground within that whole reservation to continue to mine the alluvial diamonds. And when one looks at it, alluvial diamonds, like any alluvial deposits, they have a finite life. The critical thing here is what then happens after the alluvials. And from what we see in this country, there's very little activity elsewhere on diamond mining except in Murangari area. And this then leads one to think that if we are really to address our theme here today, of improving the state of Zimbabwe's diamonds industry, I think the critical thing that comes to mind is the resource or the reserves. If the reserves are not there, then there's no diamond mining. So one would like to look at then what is happening. I think, to my knowledge, to our knowledge, it's only Mbada Diamonds so far who have embarked on a real exploration for possible kimberlitic diamonds, because all those diamonds in the alluvials there originated from some kimberlitic sources existing or probably gone or eroded, but one has to search and find those sources. From our visit, quick visit that we did there when we were doing our orientation and familiarization of our mining interests, we were made to understand that through carbon dating, there are some diamonds which are found in the alluvials which are younger than the conglomerate that exists as part of the Mkondo formations in the area. The thickness of that Mkondo formation, when one looks at it, it's not as thick. One would want to wonder that could all the diamonds that accumulated in this valley have been eroded from the Mkondo. Anyway, the dating says that some of the diamonds in the alluvials, I don't know how much, in terms of ratio, are younger than the Mkondo conglomerate. So this actually leads one to believe that some of these diamonds would have come from kimberlite pipes, which are much younger than the Mkondo. A few have been identified in the area, but what this leads one to think is that for us to assure ourselves of future mining in that area,